Britain's conversation. The Nigel Farage Show.
Mr. Nigel Farage.
Thank you, Donald, and good evening, everybody. Well, Mrs. May is on tour. She flew this morning to meet the boss, yes, the real boss, Mrs. Merkel, in Berlin, and she's now at the Elysee Palace with President Macron. I went to the Elysee Palace once. I've got to tell you, it's the best lunch I've ever had. But I sense Mrs. May won't be enjoying herself at the Elysee and that talks are pretty tense. She is, of course, negotiating an extension. Her idea is to extend up until the 30th of June, because she desperately doesn't want a new batch of British MEPs to take their seats. And I'm wondering to myself, extension, does this equal a failure of this government? There's also been a quite dramatic vote in the House of Commons in the last few minutes, and we'll come back to that. But I want to ask you, here we are, with a government, with 3 years on almost from the referendum. Extension is going to be on the agenda tomorrow night at this European summit. How long do you want the extension to be? And if you think, well, actually, I want it to be forever, then call 0345 6060 973. Or maybe like me, you think an extension is actually better than accepting this new European treaty, because it's a chance to get rid of Mrs. May, to press the reset button, to get a new leader and start all over again. Yeah, we've lost 3 years, but better that, it seems to me, than be trapped in. Text to 84850 and tell me, do you, like I had one caller I had last night, do you still think we could be leaving this Friday anyway? If you do, please tweet using the hashtag Farage and LBC at LBC, and of course Facebookers, you can comment too. Joining me is LBC's political editor, Theo Usherwood. Theo, it strikes me that a Prime Minister who came in after the referendum, who fought a general election on the basis that she would deliver Brexit, isn't the very fact that she's now asking for a further extension. Doesn't that represent failure in itself?
It represents the failure of her deal, Nigel. And now we find ourselves in a polarised situation between extension and a no-deal Brexit. That is the real choice. She isn't going to get her withdrawal agreement through the House of Commons. Talks have just broken down between Jeremy Corbyn's most senior lieutenant in John McDonnell, the Shadow Chancellor, and the Chancellor, Philip Hammond. That was a hope this morning that, given the seniority of the people within that meeting room in the Cabinet Office, that a deal could be done. They're not going to resume those talks until Thursday, so clearly there has been insufficient progress to say that a deal could be done, that the Conservatives may be able to get Theresa May's withdrawal agreement through the House and the Commons on the back of Jeremy Corbyn's support. And tonight we've had what should have been a fairly perfunctory vote.
So this is the government saying we want to extend to the 30th of June.
And this ties in to Yvette Cooper's bill, which received royal assent last night. And on that, made it mandatory for Theresa May to come to the House of Commons and lay a motion setting out that she wanted to extend Article 50 to a set date. The Prime Minister said that was 30th of June. Now we have 97 Conservative MPs have voted against it, along with 3 Labour MPs and, of course, the DUP, and Frank Field, who's independent, and that takes us up to 110. We have 80 abstentions. So in total, more than half of the Conservative Party have failed to support the Prime Minister's extension of Article 50 until June the 30th. And those abstentions, and these come with a health warning. We're just getting these names through, so there's a health warning. Some of these MPs may have been slipped, and that is where, because it's school holidays, the whips have said, it's okay, you can take a break, we'll find somebody else to vote against you. But given the size of the number of Labour MPs voting for it, some of them, of course, will have decided not to vote with the government. But let's run through the names. Chris Grayling, the Transport Secretary. Brandon Lewis, the party chairman.
Wow.
Kit Malthouse, who, of course, came up with that compromise agreement. Christopher Pincher, he's the Deputy Chief Whip, Nigel. Kwasi Kwarteng, he's the Brexit Minister. Andrea Leadsom, she's the Commons leader. And then Liam Fox, who is, of course, the International Trade Secretary. And there's some speculation tonight that he is now on resignation watch.
Well, he did write a letter this morning, didn't he, to the chairman of the 1922 committee, where he basically said that if we got finished up being trapped in a customs union, that was the worst of all worlds. And Liam Fox, who was a passionate Brexiteer, and indeed I shared a platform with him in his own constituency during that campaign, but he has stuck really, he's been fiercely loyal in many ways.
Absolutely. He could not. Well, David Davis resigned. Well, Boris Johnson resigned.
But in a sense, that didn't surprise people quite so much.
No, it didn't. But he's always been a close friend of the Prime Minister. He's always had. There's been a close.
Yeah.
They used to have lunch together, and Theresa May isn't known for having lunch with many people. Nigel. They always had lunch together. They were close friends. She gave him quite a fun department, which involved going around the world, meeting significant people in different countries outside of the European Union, preparing the way for those trade deals.
Yeah.
It was a good job, and it was something he thought, and Prime Minister thought, and his friends have thought he was very good at doing, and he's very knowledgeable about what's available and what's possible. Now, of course, Theresa May, by entering into talks with Labour, effectively, if she goes down that route of securing Jeremy Corbyn's votes and Labour's votes, the price for that will be a permanent customs union, which will mean, under World Trade Organization rules, the UK will not be able to go and sign free trade deals with countries outside of the European Union, which will render the past 2.5 years, all of those air miles, all of those meetings that Liam Fox has undertaken, completely redundant, a complete waste of time.
So you may as well resign in a sense.
He may as well resign. You might as well abolish the department and all of the civil servants in it, because by doing that deal, if Theresa May goes and does that deal, I should say, it would have been all for nothing.
She's got no control over her own party at all.
No.
That's perfectly clear. She's going to Brussels tomorrow, and you'll be there in Brussels tomorrow, and I'll be there in Brussels tomorrow. And the meeting starts at 6 p.m. Brussels time, and it'll go on as long as it goes on until there's an agreement of some kind. Donald Tusk, in the last few minutes, has written to EU leaders suggesting a flexible extension to Brexit of no longer than a year. The UK could leave whenever ready. That, would, of course, would mean with the withdrawal treaty.
Yeah.
I wonder, there is one very odd possibility here. Given that the bill has now become law that says we can't leave with no deal, if Monsieur Macron wanted to make life incredibly difficult, if he was to veto any extension, Mrs May would have to revoke Article 50.
It becomes a bit more. You're right. I mean, you're right. I mean, that's the face. That's the face of it, Nigel.
She's almost dug herself into her own trap here.
That is the face of it. That if you look at the legislation, the Yvette Cooper bill, that Theresa May would automatically have to revoke Article 50. There is a question mark about whether Downing Street can unilaterally. Now, what I'm talking about here is Theresa May sitting in number 10 behind her desk and revoking Article 50. And whether there is a question mark as to whether she can do that, or whether she would have to come back to the House of Commons and revoke Article 50 through a vote of MPs in the House of Commons.
So does she have, under the royal prerogative, the power to do that?
Exactly. And there's a big question mark that hasn't yet been answered on it. Now, the experts that I've spoken to seem to think that she does have the power to do it, and that she would simply revoke Article 50. She would resign. The Conservatives would select a new leader, and presumably would do the whole thing over again.
I mean, my guess is that this isn't going to happen. My guess is an extension will be agreed to. There was even talk this morning that if an extension was agreed to, 3 months into the extension, there'd be a health check carried out on the United to make sure we were behaving ourselves.
Yes.
We really are about to become a colony, folks. That is what is going on. What's your best guess of what will happen tomorrow night?
There'll be a surprise. We are going to, and I'm saying the UK here, is going to receive a really nasty surprise. Theresa May will go in at 6 p.m. She'll be able to address the 27 other EU leaders. She'll be then asked to leave the room. She'll go back to the ambassador's
how can we put up with this?
She goes back to the ambassador's residence. Her team then pick up their mobile phones and they look at Twitter. They eat cold pizza and they find out what's taking place inside the room. And then at some point, close to midnight, maybe in the early hours, a phone call will go to the ambassador's residence. The European Union are now ready for you. Come back. Jean-Claude Juncker, the President of the Commission, Donald Tusk, the President of the Council, will then give a statement
How have we sunk to
outlining exactly what's been agreed, and then Theresa May will give a statement. And that may happen at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And then she will come back to the UK, and under a change which has been made to the Yvette Cooper bill, she now has the power to say, this is what's been agreed. Under the Yvette Cooper bill, she has to accept what has been agreed. She doesn't have to risk, and this is the important bit, another vote in Parliament. So she will say, this is what's been agreed. This is what the UK is now going to do.
Theo, thank you. I'll see you in Brussels.
See you there.
Well, that, ladies and gentlemen, is what our once great country has sunk to. Our leader today going around European capitals begging the leaders of Germany and France to help her in this crisis. And then tomorrow, Theo Ashwood predicts she'll be treated in an utterly humiliating way. Sent out of the headmaster's study whilst the senior teachers decide what her punishment is to be, and then call back at midnight or whatever it may be. What a shameful moment in our nation's history. So tell me, given all of this, how long do you want the extension to be? Forever? A long-term extension, which means at least we could get a new leader, but Brexit would have failed in many ways? Or should we just leave on Friday? But can we, given the legislation that's passed? Fred, you're a first-time caller. Good evening to you.
Hello, Nigel. Lovely to speak to you.
Good to speak to you. What have we sunk to, Fred?
I'm a great believer in you anyway, but really, just a no deal really is what we should have had. I mean, we've got a spineless Prime Minister, a group of MPs with no backbone. And, when you think about it, all the crises that this country has had in its history, and we've got through them, 2 world wars and everything else, and we've come out at the other side better. And now, we're just shameful. I mean, honestly, it's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, there wouldn't be a European Union without us and our allies anyway, Nigel. There wouldn't be a Europe as we know it. We all know that.
No, I agree with that. I agree with that.
This woman she couldn't run a bath, or Corbyn. I wouldn't let them run me a bath, honestly. I really wouldn't.
But Fred, is an extension of Article 50 better or not than signing up to the treaty that she'd negotiated?
Of course it is. An extension.
Yeah.
I personally wouldn't like a very long extension. I think probably a year would be the best option.
Yeah.
With a Brexit Prime Minister, someone like Steve Baker or any of that, really Steve Baker, I would think. I mean, if you was in Parliament, then I think you would do a better job. But Steve Baker, I think, would be the best person.
OK, all right, Fred, thank you. Well, Fred, I hear the exasperation in Fred's voice, and I feel pretty exasperated. The humiliation we're going through. You're listening to The Nigel Farage Show. It's 6:15, time for the news headlines with Tim Humphrey.
Donald Tusk has written to the European Council proposing they agree to a Brexit extension of no more than a year at their summit tomorrow. Debenhams has gone into administration after rejecting a £200 million rescue offer from Mike Ashley's Sports Direct, and a doctor given a suspended jail sentence over the gross negligence manslaughter of a 6-year-old boy has been told she can return to work. LBC weather: any rain clearing in the south this evening, frost and fog further north, and a low of 0 degrees.
LBC Travel, I'm Louise Knight, and the M1 is queuing out of town from the M25 to Redbourne at 9 after a car broke down earlier. A car's broken down on the clockwise exit slip of the M25 at 25 for the A10 and Enfield. It's causing queues back onto the main carriageway. Emergency repairs on the South Circular at Lee, causing queues both ways towards the Cliftons roundabout, and an investigation in Walthamstow shut Hoe Street both ways at Church Hill. Now onto the trains. Greater Anglia are looking better now. They still have some delays though from Liverpool Street to Cambridge, Stansted Airport and Hertford East after signalling problems earlier. Stansted Express still have a handful of delays as well.
This is LBC.
Sometimes it's difficult to find your perfect match. So at Mercedes-Benz, we've made finding the one really easy for you. Right now, you can get an approved used A-Class from just £179 a month. And with offers across the entire range, from SUVs to coupes, finding your perfect match couldn't be easier. Contact your local Mercedes-Benz retailer today to find out more.
Based on A180D sport models over 6 months old with an average selling price of £16,316, £4,170 advance. 48-month personal operating lease, 10,000 miles per annum. Mileage and damage charges apply. No ownership, 18 plus, ends 30th of June. Participating retailers, Mercedes-Benz Finance.
This is LBC.
You know your business, what keeps you up at night, and the moments that make it all worthwhile. You know your 5-year plan, and that you really want to be there in 2. We know we can help you get there. Barclays offers unsecured loans of up to £100,000 that can be with you in days or even hours. To apply for a loan that's right for your business, search Barclays Business Loans. Let's go forward. Subject to status, T's and C's apply, guarantee may be needed.
Set for Life is the new game from the National Lottery where you can win 10 grand every month for 30 years. So now you can jump into June, make October a scream, and stick a rocket up November. Make every month amazing. Play new Set for Life Mondays and Thursdays. Amazing starts here. Prize may be capped. Rules, procedures and game-specific rules apply. Players must be 16 or over.
A lot of Londoners aren't happy about the ultra-low emission zone. We talked to some of them.
£12.50 is an absolute liberty. Are they taking the...
Renault Zoe.
It's a joke, mate. Trying to charge people extra money for driving in the city, but...
Renault Zoe.
Man, it's ridiculous. It's just an absolute...
Renault Zoe.
It really is.
Keep it clean with the all-electric Renault Zoe. 0 tailpipe emissions, 0 ULEZ charge. Search Renault Zoe.
Christine from London didn't think she had any chance of claiming PPI until she contacted the claims guys. Here's what she said about us on Trustpilot.
I didn't think I had any chance of reclaiming any PPI as I had no paperwork or any memory of having taken out PPI.
To start your PPI claim, just text ANSWER to 66777. Text ANSWER to 66777 now. Alternatively, you can complain directly to your lender or the Financial Ombudsman for free.
The Claims Guys.
It's time. Time to join the millions of people that meet happy with Zoom video conferencing. With stunning HD video, crisp audio, and instant wireless sharing across any mobile, tablet, or desktop device. But the best thing about Zoom? It just works. So ditch the distractions, join the movement, and meet happy with Zoom video conferencing. Visit zoom.us to set up your free account today. That's zoom.us. Zoom video conferencing.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Mrs May wants yet another extension. Donald Tusk is suggesting that tomorrow night in Brussels, he's going to put on the table up to a year's extension, although we could leave at any time beforehand. We'll see what gets agreed. Bit of breaking news from the USA. William Barr, the US Attorney General, has announced that the full Robert Mueller report will be published within a week. And I have to tell you, I am delighted with that because I've just had enough of the BBC and The Guardian and many others in the media constantly saying that I was a person of interest to the FBI, asking endless questions whether I'd been subpoenaed, indeed, by the Mueller investigation, because apparently I've been funded by Russia. Indeed, Hillary Clinton said that once on a public platform. So I can't wait for this full report to be out, and I shall look forward to the apologies, the reputational damage that I've had from these people. I expect there will come none. But back to this, and I think it is a humiliation. Some of you disagree with me completely. The truth of it is, I get on Twitter from Phil, that anyone leaving a club cannot be party to a discussion on the terms being offered to them. You're stirring people up over nothing, as usual. No, actually, Phil, I think that throughout this process we have seen the sheer arrogance of the unelected EU bureaucrats, and most people in this country, Phil, don't like it. Dom says, we've become a laughingstock because of people like you who started this ball rolling. You're right, Dom. I should have given in years ago. We should have joined the Euro, abolished the House of Commons and be run by Mr Juncker before or after lunch. Brexit is not the problem. The way the Prime Minister has dealt with Brexit is the problem. Nick is a first-time caller from Milton Keynes. Nick, do you want an extension or not?
0, please, Nigel.
Right.
Or even better, minus 12 days. It should have been on the 29th of March.
Yes. Yes.
The reason that I feel increasingly nervous about any suggestion of any delay is that I just feel it's going deeper and deeper into the hidden agenda to thwart and cancel Brexit. And that's from both sides, I think, from Theresa May's point of view and also the EU's point of view. I think they are both addicted to the idea of staying in, and I think that it's being put into play now. What we're seeing is their end game.
How much, Nick, how much of this fault lies at the Prime Minister's door, in your opinion?
Well, let me reverse that question to you. What would Nigel do is the question I often ask. So if you were in Theresa May's shoes, either this morning or 2 weeks ago, or 2 years ago,
wow,
how would you have dealt with things differently to perhaps ensure a WTO deal?
Well, not to have agreed to Monsieur Barnier's sequencing at the very beginning, namely, we had to go through agreeing to give them vast sums of money, etc., in return for nothing more than a promissory note that was ultimately called a political declaration. That was a fundamental problem. And Nick, the whole thing should have been dealt with like a business negotiation. Look, we're really, really happy to maintain very close ties with you, have a proper tariff-free, quota-free trade system. But if you're not prepared to talk about that, or don't want to talk about that, then we'll just leave on WTO terms. Here's the date. And they would have come running after us, Nick. So we've got the whole thing wrong. The one that really interests me is March the 29th, which you raise. Because the fact is that at that moment in time, there was no legislation in Parliament, was there? No legislation in Parliament saying we should prevent a no-deal exit. And Mrs May could have taken that up to the wire and try to get us out on March the 29th. And I think a very big burden now lays at her door.
So what do you think her addiction is to staying in the EU? Why is she so obsessed with the idea of staying in?
Because it's the status quo. It's the tyranny of the status quo, and people are afraid of change. And she's clearly... the influences upon these politicians are generally the giant multinationals. That's who lobbies them. And they've swallowed this agenda that somehow leaving on WTO terms would be a disaster, a catastrophe. The sky would fall in. Just, of course, as they thought the Brexit vote would make that happen, but it didn't. And, when you listen, Nick, to, the president of the Port of Calais, indeed some anonymous British civil servants, all saying we're ready... Even the governor of the Bank of England, even Mark Carney saying 80% of UK businesses are more than ready for a WTO Brexit. She's just gone with that establishment argument. I'm not even sure, Nick, she's capable now of thinking for herself.
I don't see that there'd be any vetoes tomorrow to any suggested plans. But my question is, do you think they are more motivated to our 39 billion than they are averse to you and a couple of other troublemakers?
Yeah. Well, of course, they're going to get a lot of UK troublemakers, it seems to me, if these elections go ahead. I could be wrong. Nick, the 39 billion they want, but there's an even bigger message. They are terrified of what the Eurosceptics can do across the rest of the continent between May the 23rd and 26th in these European elections, and they can point to the UK and say, look, there's no point fighting us, you can't beat us, you best stay with us. So, on balance, they'd rather put up with a few irritants like me and take the money and send that message out to other Eurosceptics. Nick, I thank you for the call. Andrew is a first-time caller from Stevenage. Good evening, Andrew.
Evening, Nigel.
So, an extension, is it the right thing?
If we need to have an extension, then yes, it is.
Right. And how long is acceptable, Andrew?
Nigel, as long as it needs to take. Much of what you said this evening, I agree with, except that I would be a Remainer. So if we're in this position where we are going to leave, then it needs to be done correctly. And the sort of the short, sharp shock or WTO that you talk about is it needs to be done properly. And so...
okay.
But the whole situation that we're in, as you described, which is what made me pick up the phone with Theresa May being humiliated, is appalling. It's the worst situation that we can be in.
Yes, regardless whether you're Leaver or Remainer, to see the British Prime Minister being treated like this is pretty awful, isn't it?
It's shocking. It's awful.
And what did you think, Andrew? Tell me something. As a Remainer, what did you think of her withdrawal treaty?
The whole thing, it's not good enough, is in the short of it. If we're going to leave, as I said, we need to leave properly, but we need to be leaving in a strong position, and none of what I've heard so far is giving us that position. So I would opt for stick with the status quo and continue to negotiate and get something that will help Britain be stronger and better.
So would it make sense to press the reset button, get a new Prime Minister and start again?
We've tried that once already with David Cameron.
Post-referendum, it's just been her, really, hasn't it?
Yeah.
So,
change needs to happen. But,
absolutely. Well, there we are, Andrew. Thank you. And Andrew, Remainer, and I are not disagreeing too much on this. Farage wants an extension. What a turncoat. No, I'm not a turncoat. I have, since Chequers, been virulently opposed to this new treaty that Mrs May has been signing up to with the European Union. And I've said since August that I thought that extension would happen. And now we've got here. Look, I want to leave. All right? I want to leave. I wanted us to leave on March the 29th. But if that is off the table, I'd much rather extension than signing up for this treaty, particularly with the add-ons that the Labour Party wants. They want single market alignment, regulation of workers' rights, environmental regulations, and a customs union. Labour want us to sign up to the single market as well. And that means when Mrs May in her fireside chat told you that Labour and we agree on ending freedom of movement, no, you don't. Because in the single market, you wouldn't be able to. Denise says to me, although I feel for Mrs May's position, why does she keep going back to the EU when they've totally humiliated her on several occasions? And every time she goes there with her begging bowl, she is humiliating herself and our country on the world stage. Denise, I agree with that. Luke from Orpington says, why is it that the only time Mrs May is seen smiling is when she's over the channel? In the UK, it's a constant frown. Well, I think, Luke, when you go to see the bosses, when you are a sort of colony of this new empire, and they can be very beastly to you, it's best to put on a smile and sort of pretend everything's going okay when really it's a complete disaster. And more Remainers on Twitter. What's the problem with an EU army? We can't make up the needed numbers ourselves. We don't have to participate, we can veto it. It's a classic line from Remainers. Look, guys, why do we want to be part of an emerging empire? That's what Mr Barroso called it, the former Commission President. That's what the French Europe Minister has called it. They're building an empire, one with an absence of democracy, one that actually wants to have its own military by 2025 and is still intent on expanding. I think there are some big lessons from history about states like that. It's up to you. You're listening to The Nigel Farage Show here on LBC at 6:30 in time for the news with Tim Humphrey.
Donald Tusk has written to EU leaders suggesting a flexible extension to Brexit of no longer than a year. He suggests it could be terminated earlier if both sides agree on a withdrawal agreement. Sports Direct owner Mike Ashley says Debenhams going into administration is a national scandal. His 30% stake in the company has been wiped out as its lenders have taken over, putting hundreds of jobs at risk. A man from East London has been jailed for blackmailing people using adult websites. He's been sentenced to more than 6 years after making £500,000 from the scam, which froze people's screens unless they paid. LBC weather, any rain clearing in the south this evening, frost and fog further north and a low of 0 degrees.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast. Weekday mornings from 7. LBC.
In total, the number of local authority fat cats earning more than £100,000 has moved to almost 2,500. 608 council employees earn packages exceeding the Prime Minister's salary. If you are running Asda or you are running EasyJet and you need more money, you don't just shake the money tree and £76 falls out of every single household, as you do with local authorities. You actually have to go out and find how to make your cars or your chocolates or your airline more attractive. That's what these people don't have to do. They just hold us up, they wear a ski mask and take more money off us.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast.
With Xero, get your business digital ready with Xero accounting software.
LBC.
Protecting your business from cybercrime is a growing priority, yet understanding how to stay ahead of potential threats is challenging. Whether you're a startup or an established business, BT is here to help. With a wide range of security-embedded products and services built especially for businesses. Find out more and enter to win a Pixel 3 smartphone plus a Google Home Hub at lbc.co.uk. BT, helping business relationships stay on track.
It took 2 brewers.
And me, a hop buyer.
A grain masher.
A bottling plant manager.
A chief sampler.
Bar staff.
And me, David, a relationship manager from Lloyds Bank, to brew an award-winning beer.
Because by working together with the business, he helped provide the finance that moved Tiny Rebel from 2 guys in a garage to a purpose-built brewery with a 120-strong workforce. Lloyds Bank, by the side of business.
The great British weather. One day you're cozying in with the family, the next you're chilling out in the garden. But whatever you're doing, Trusted Trader are always on hand to help. TrustedTrader.com have lots of really lovely tradespeople who are vetted, reviewed and reliable, unlike the weather. So for roofers who stop the rain coming in, gardeners for when the sun comes out, and other professionals in their trade, simply visit
JustTrader.com. Block management. 2 very simple words. But what do they actually mean? Well, there's budget approval for starters, then service charge invoices, health and safety paperwork, cleaning, gardening, maintenance, inspections, contracts, insurance, emergency call-outs, and a whole lot more besides.
So for complete block management solutions, just remember 3 simple letters: ABC. ABC Estates will take care of all your day-to-day management, leaving you as happy as Larry. See abcestates.co.uk or call 0800 888 6688.
Set for Life is the new game from the National Lottery where you can win 10 grand every month for 30 years. So now you can jump into June, make October a scream, and stick a rocket up November. Make every month amazing. Play new Set for Life Mondays and Thursdays. Amazing starts here. Prize may be capped. Rules, procedures and game-specific rules apply. Players must be 16 or over.
Does it matter to you how your money's invested? Think about it. You've got your own values, but do the people who invest your money share them? With a Wealthify stocks and shares ISA, you can put your money into an ethical plan. Just tell us how you want to invest. Are you cautious, adventurous, or somewhere in between? And start your Wealthify ethical ISA today. Easy. For more information, download the app or visit wealthify.com. With investing, capital is at risk and you could get back less than you put in.
Leading Britain's conversation. LBC, The Nigel Farage Show.
All the talk is extension. Mrs May has been in Berlin. She's in Paris now. She'll be in Brussels tomorrow. It's all about extension. Donald Tusk is suggesting, as the head of the European Council, that it should be up to a year with an option for us to leave before then. Mrs May still talking about an extension to the 30th of June, trying to push that through the House of Commons this evening, and over half her own party voting against it. Gosh, the Tory party are in a mess on this one. But maybe somebody has just ridden to their salvation, because it seems now virtually certain we're going to be fighting European elections. And somebody, a former Tory MEP, he was an MEP from 1979 to 1984, was on LBC this afternoon with Sheila Fogarty, and he's announced he's throwing his hat in the ring for the European elections. And his name is Stanley Johnson, father of Boris. Here he is.
The Tory party put out, an all-points bulletin saying, will candidates please, let us know by 5 o'clock this evening whether they want to be considered as candidates, Conservative candidates, for the European elections. So I sat up all night. I didn't sit up all night. I sat up at least an hour and a half, and I jolly well wrote out why I think it is worth doing.
Stanley Johnson, and he says it's vital for the UK to take these pending elections seriously, even if Britain remains a member of the EU for just another year. So Stanley, former MEP, he's 78 years old. Will the Conservatives want him? He's a pretty keen Remainer, but at least he's got a bit of personality, hasn't he, and a good sense of humour. Who knows? We'll watch that one very, very carefully. So, Mrs May, in the Elysee Palace, is, I'm asking you, an extension. How long do you want it to be? Do you want it to be very, very short, not at all, or do you want it to be forever? And Boz says to me, Nigel, Mrs May is a Prime Minister in name only. Well, I tell you what, that vote tonight in the House of Commons absolutely proves that. Louis says, better to commit to a delay with the hope we can get something resembling Brexit in the end than give in to Mrs May's soft Brexit or not leaving at all. Yeah, Louis, I'm with you on that. Roger from Waltham Abbey just says, I'm depressed how this is all panning out. Brexit is a train without a driver, Mohammed says to me on Twitter. I think, Mohammed, everybody on all sides of the debate could totally agree with that. Tim is a first-time caller from Warwickshire. Good evening, Tim.
Good evening, Nigel. How are you?
I'm all right, yeah. Sadly, I predicted all of this back last August, Tim, and I suspect that it's going to be a year. That's what I'm guessing.
Yeah, well, I've got a couple of points for you, Nigel.
Please.
I've been a Tory supporter since 1984. Mm-hmm. This will be the first time I will vote in the European elections. Yep. I will vote for the Brexit Party if there is someone. Mm-hmm. So I'm only early 50, so it's been a long time supporting one party, but I've been so disappointed with what has taken place in the last 2.5 years.
Tim, have they been? Can I ask you something? Do you think this party that you've supported for 35 years, do you think it's been incompetent or dishonest? Or how do you assess it?
I would put it down to not sufficient experience in negotiation and not having someone that actually believed in the result that took place in 2016.
So a lack of will mixed with incompetence, which is inexperience.
Well, I think that's a bit strong to say incompetence. I just think it's not a lack of experience.
All right, fair enough. And your second point, Tim?
Well, I've done about £8 billion worth of deals all across Europe.
Wow.
We're a family business. We started business ourselves, a family. And I would be saying to Brussels that we are going to leave on the 31st of December this year. That's what I personally would be doing. I'd be giving British companies an additional 8 months because we have been in limbo, even though we have been preparing. And we're going to walk on that day. And if you want to trade with us, we'll be on WTO rules until we can come up with a free trade that works for Great Britain and not just for the other 27 countries.
Tim, does your company trade all around the world or just with Europe? How does it work?
We predominantly import from Europe, so that's Denmark, Holland, Germany, Spain, France, Italy, Poland. I do a little bit of importing from America, but predominantly... but we trade where we sell the product and where we manufacture it is all in the UK. We're a group of 1,500 people in our group.
That's a big group.
Of sites.
Yeah. So do import tariffs not worry you a little bit, Tim?
Certainly aware of them, absolutely. I know what it's going to cost our company if that does take place. And on my product, it's going to be something around about €4.5 million a year on what we do. But I think for the long term, I need to separate the two. If I look at short term, then absolutely you would say, well, why are we doing this? If I look at long term, I think Great Britain will be United Kingdom will be in a far better place.
And is that because
if we can get out of there and actually have free trade around the world and make Great Britain and the United Kingdom an attractive place to do business?
Yeah, Tim, I have to say, as somebody who spent 20 years in business before getting involved in this politics malarkey, I agree with those sentiments 100%. Thank you. Facebook messages. Christine says, happy to extend for as long as possible. Phil says, I will never forgive the Conservatives or Labour for their disgusting behaviour over Brexit. Scarlett says, doesn't make any difference whether we get 1 year or 3 years, we still won't get our Brexit. Scarlett, we won't get our Brexit with this Prime Minister and with this Cabinet, that is true. Clive says, I want extension to last forever. So there's Remainers want it to last forever. OK, I understand that. What does Mohammed, a first-time caller from Watford, make of it all? Good evening, Mohammed.
Hi, Nigel. How's it going?
Well, it's going about as badly as it could be, I suppose, really.
I know. Listen, I've got a slightly different view on things.
OK.
My view was if we would have had some sort of an arrangement with the Americans for a potential free trade agreement, if we would have had a proposal with the Japanese or the Chinese for potential free trade agreements, we would have had more leverage than we do today. What has Liam Fox been doing for the last 2.5 years? Why don't we have something to use against the European deal as it stands today?
Do you know, Mohammed, when the Trump administration first came in, one of my first thoughts was, whatever we're supposed and not supposed to do, we should just crack on with the Americans, getting ready a big all-encompassing deal to use, as you say, as leverage in our negotiations, and it's not happened. I suspect that Liam Fox has been held back in many ways by the Prime Minister and the Cabinet from doing it. I can't think of any other explanation. As far as Japan's concerned, really interesting. The Swiss did a free trade deal with Japan over 10 years ago. The EU has now finally negotiated one. But no, Mohammed, our approach to all of this looks pretty pitiful, doesn't it?
It does. It's just perhaps, if there was ever a manual on how to not run a negotiation, this would pretty much be it. I mean, how unprofessional and it's shameful, actually. I mean,
it'll be in textbooks, won't it, for decades to come? This is how not to do it.
This is how not to do it, even if you were warned, and even if there were better use cases for you to use and leverage and basically re-engineer for your benefit. And as I said, if you were in a position of leverage today, if you were to go to the EU and say, listen, give us a better deal, or we will go to the Americans, or we'll go to the Japanese, or we'll go to anybody else who can give us better deals for our trade, the EU would have thought otherwise. But right now, EU knows it's either them or nothing, and that's why we are where we are.
Very quickly, Mohammed, what would you do from here? Does an extension now make sense?
I think we don't have any option. We go for an extension. In the meantime, we try to reach out to other potential trade partners, try and sign up some more trade agreements as soon as we can, and then leave. But I think we have no option now.
We have no. I think actually, do you know what? That sums it up rather beautifully. Thank you for your call. Jordan is a first-time caller from Barnsley. Hi, Jordan.
Hi, Nigel. You all right?
I'm all right. Now, all reports are that it's towns like Barnsley where people are absolutely furious that Brexit's not being delivered. Would that be a fair assessment?
It's a more than fair assessment, Nigel. It's just getting to a joke now. We should have left in May with no deal if nothing else could have been arranged. But obviously, no deal's now been took completely off the table. Why weren't all these talks that have been going off of the last couple of months been done years ago when David Cameron was in power? Why is it all so last minute? Say take your tinfoil hat off, but it just seems like the government have made it so difficult to sort Brexit out, to try and show the public it's the hardest thing in the world to do. Look, I'm sure it is difficult, but they've left things so last minute. All these talks should have been done ages ago.
So the view from Barnsley would be just leave, Jordan, would it?
Right now, because no deal's been took off the table,
I know.
The most logical thing to do is to have the extension, but only minimal. Don't just delay it and delay it and delay it. Like I said, it's just making it out like it's the hardest thing in the world to do and we're never going to leave because it's so difficult. And slowly people are starting to think, maybe it's just not possible to do, and it's going to make the country, like the planes are going to crash and...
Yeah, I mean, hasn't that in many ways been their tactic, Jordan? Isn't that what the Remainers have wanted to do? Wear us down.
Yeah, exactly. From day one, it's like Project Fear. You've heard some absolutely ridiculous claims what's going to happen with Brexit.
Medicines are going to run out and planes won't fly.
It's the end of the Western civilization as we know it.
But I tell you what, Jordan, all the polling I'm seeing in the north and from towns like yours suggests that actually people don't believe a word of it anymore and they've had enough.
It's completely correct, Nigel. I mean, there was that recent petition that had a good few million signatures, but this is the silent majority that you don't hear about in the north that are getting very, very upset slowly. And I think if they keep delaying it and delaying it and delaying it, they're going to have a very big problem on their hands.
Well, I hope you're not right, but I fear in some ways you could be. Jordan, thank you. You're listening to the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC at 6:45 and time for the news headlines with Tin Humphrey.
Theresa May has finished talks with French President Emmanuel Macron in Paris over a Brexit extension after meeting the German Chancellor Angela Merkel in Berlin earlier. A doctor who was stopped from practising over the death of a 6-year-old boy in 2011 will be allowed to return to work later this year, but only under strict conditions. And all Debenhams stores will remain open for the rest of the year, despite the department store chain going into administration. LBC weather: any rain will clear in the south this evening, frost and fog further north, and a low of 0 degrees.
LBC Travel, I'm J. Louise Knight, and the A40 is queuing out of town from Hillingdon Circus towards the Swakeleys roundabout after a car broke down earlier. Hoe Street in Walthamstow is still shut at Church Hill with a police investigation, and in Tottenham the High Road is shut from Lordship Lane to White Hart Lane ahead of the football tonight. Now, because of fans heading to the match, the North Circular is very, very slow westbound from the M11 to the 4th Street Tunnel at Edmonton. Onto the trains, Greater Anglia still have some delays from Liverpool Street out to Cambridge, Stansted Airport and Hertford East. It's all after signalling problems earlier. They're still not stopping at Stratford or Lea Bridge, and Stansted Express also have a handful of delays to the airport.
Coming up at 7 on LBC, Ian Dale.
At 8, it's our big interview on Tuesday with Heidi Allen MP. She's the new acting leader of the TIGS, the independent group, and she'll be taking your calls as well.
Ian Dale on LBC.
Please state your reason for this call.
I would like to end my home insurance policy.
Please state your reason for this call.
End my policy.
Please enter your 12-digit passcode. Policy ended.
Finally.
To confirm end of policy, Please enter credit card details and pay £50.
With Aviva Plus home insurance, you can pay monthly at no extra cost and with no cancellation charges. New Aviva Plus. Insurance the way it should be.
Excludes Northern Ireland.
Christine from London didn't think she had any chance of claiming PPI until she contacted the claims guys. Here's what she said about us on Trustpilot.
I didn't think I had any chance of reclaiming any PPI as I had no paperwork or any memory of having taken out PPI.
To start your PPI claim, just text ANSWER to 66777. Text ANSWER to 66777 now. Alternatively, you can complain directly to your lender or the Financial Ombudsman for free.
The Claims Guys.
Hey, you know what they say, go big or go home. So get yourself to Big Motoring World for up to 2,000 used BMWs, Audis, Mercedes, VWs, Nissans, Fords, Vauxhalls, Peugeots, Fiats, Mitsubishis, Citroens, Hondas. Oh, I know that's a big list, but I already told you, go big or go home. See bigmotoringworld.co.uk or find them minutes from the M25. Hit it, ladies.
Big Motoring World.
The Google Home is an amazing smart speaker. It's worth £129, but you can get one on us when you get BT's Superfast Fibre Essential. Imagine that working with a hub that's more powerful than other big providers. Superfast Fibre Essential is $29.99 a month on an 18-month contract with a $29.99 setup fee. Join by 25th of April and get a Google Home on us. Search BT Broadband. BT. Be there.
Prices may change. New customers to verify see bt.com/smarthub. $37.99 for month 19. Terms apply.
Have you ever bought an investment sold by Barclays, Halifax, Lloyds, Santander or any other bank or financial advisor? Investments like stocks and shares ISAs, investment bonds and certain types of pension can be risky. If you lost money with one of these investments, you could be owed thousands of pounds in compensation. Even if you no longer have the investment or the paperwork, here at Goodwin Barrett we can still help. To start your free assessment with Goodwin Barrett, text GOOD to 60777. That's GOOD to 60777.
You know your business, what keeps you up at night, and the moments that make it all worthwhile. You know your 5-year plan, and that you really want to be there in 2. We know we can help you get there. Barclays offers unsecured loans of up to £100,000 that can be with you in days or even hours. To apply for a loan that's right for your business, search Barclays Business Loans. Let's go forward. Subject to status, T's and C's apply, guarantee may be needed.
Helen's Homecoming Lamb.
It's a lot quieter around here since the boys went off to college. Sunday roast was always the highlight. All the family around the table for my roast leg of lamb with salsa verde crust. I'm doing it again today. It's their favourite and... Hang on a minute.
Hi, Mum. We brought a couple of pals back. Is that all right?
Yeah. It's good to have them back. For a couple of weeks.
Make your own homecoming roast with our tender, tasty grass-fed lamb. Food Love Stories. Brought to you by Tesco.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Our humiliated Prime Minister is travelling around Europe. Berlin first to see the real boss, Angela Merkel. She's now at the Elysee Palace with President Macron. Off, of course, to Brussels tomorrow to negotiate the extension. I'm asking you whether you want that extension or whether you can see any other alternatives. Martin from the Cotswolds says, leave on Friday, no deal. Any pain on both sides as a result will stimulate the right behaviour and help everyone get their act together. And, of course, Martin, I genuinely believe that had we left on the 29th of March, by now, any short-term difficulties would probably have been sorted out. But there we are. David from Newark says the extension will result in the Conservatives losing 100 seats in the next general election. Well, I will never vote for them again. They'll be out of power for 15 years. David, that may well be true. Although they're up against a Labour Party with a very, very left-wing leadership that seems to be struggling at the moment. The train analogy is continuing. Brexit was always a train without a destination. No, it wasn't. The destination was actually pretty clear. It's just that the driver didn't seem to know where it was. Oscar is a first-time caller from Hounslow. Good evening, Oscar.
Hi, Nigel. How are you?
I am well. So what sort of extension, Oscar, makes sense, if one at all?
Well, I think we do need an extension, not for economic reasons or anything. I just think, being from Ireland, and I have to tell you, I'm not in Hounslow, but I just wanted to get through to you. I'm in Ireland.
You're in Ireland, are you? Whereabouts in Ireland are you?
Yeah. I'm in Kildare, near Dublin.
I know
Big
Kildare.
Fan of you.
I know Kildare.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, of course I do. So, come on then, Oscar from Kildare, give me a perspective.
Well, I think that it would be a disaster if a hard border was to be implemented along the...
Who is going to build that hard border, Oscar? Who is going to build that hard border?
I think, to be honest, I think the EU will force the Republic to build it.
But what do you mean the Republic, who 100 years ago separated from Great Britain to be an independent country, would be told by bureaucrats in Brussels what to do?
I think we will, to be honest, because, I mean, the government, I don't think they listen to the people, and I think it's the same in the UK and all over the world pretty much.
So Ireland really then hasn't become independent at all, has it?
No, I think we definitely need a reform on the EU. I wouldn't be for leaving it, but I think we definitely need reform.
All right, so Oscar, if you tried to reform the European Union and it didn't reform, would it then be time to leave?
I think maybe so, but I'm not sure. I know that Ireland, about 60% of our trade is with the European Union, this including the United Kingdom. So,
well, actually, most of your trade actually is with the United Kingdom or with America, and so I think in many ways you're in the wrong currency. Oscar, I just want to say this to you: this hard border is a myth. You know, the other week, when the prospect of us perhaps leaving with no deal on a couple of days was looking very real, we saw statements from Varadkar, we saw statements from Barnier saying, even in the event of a WTO Brexit, there will be no hard border. Oscar, it's not going to happen. It's been used as a scare tactic.
Well, maybe so, but I just don't think it's worth the risk. I don't think innocent people should be put on the line for that. I just think we should get a free trade deal, simple as with the UK and the EU.
So if we got,
I agree with you on that.
If we got the free trade deal, then the prospect of any need for a hard border, as you call it, would completely disappear, wouldn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
OK, Oscar, I get the point. I get the point. Thank you very much indeed. Graham is a first-time caller from Croydon. Hi, Graham.
Hello, Nigel.
So, do you want an extension, Graham?
Yes, I think I'd probably prefer a long one now.
OK, go on.
The basis for that being, so we can reset. We can also get your MEPs into, the EU Parliament. Mm-hmm. And then we can, as you say, mess up their agenda, as Jacob Reed-Moss said, hold back Macron on all these different things he wants to do. Now, I was also thinking, I was also hearing something alarming today, that Macron wants a clause put in where we can't do that. Can he do that?
Well, he can't do it on his own. He'd have to get agreement at the European Council, Graham.
So if he gets agreement at the European Council, and then he tells Theresa May that has to be there, we have to agree to that. She agrees to that. What happens then?
Well, look, he can't do it on his own. It's got to be the European Council. Graham, we're going to have an extension. Do you think, if we have an extension of a year or 2 years, do you still think Brexit will happen in the end?
I'm very worried about it, Nigel. We should have out on the 29th of March.
Yeah. No.
Could I just ask you one more quick question, Nigel?
Go on.
I did hear of some legal case being raised by an ex-High Court judge.
Yeah,
saying that we should have left the EU by the 29th of March.
There are legal cases going on that what's happening is unconstitutional. They'll all go nowhere. Graham, I thank you. Never thought I'd say this, Monsieur Macron. If you're listening to Nigel's show, there hasn't been a better time than now to honour the wishes of 17.4 million aggrieved voters than by just doing what you've always threatened. Simply veto any extension, boot us out without a deal at the end of the week. Do this, and I guarantee you, Madame Macron will be invited to the VIP invitation to our Brexit victory party in Guildford on Saturday. Very, very hopeful there. I'm going to go to Durham and speak to Brett, another first-time caller. Hi, Brett.
Good evening, Nigel. Lovely to speak to you.
Good to speak to you. So, how long should the extension be, Brett?
Oh, I'd have pushed 10 minutes.
10 minutes, right, OK. Well, it's not going to be that, is it?
Absolutely not. The issue I've got is that they're not even making pretend about it anymore. It's just literally out in the open now. They're just going to obfuscate until it's done and dusted with, that we don't have a Brexit.
Well, they've done a very good job. Our political class have done a very, very good job, Brett, of turning us into an international laughingstock, of destroying much faith and trust in our entire democratic system. but I just get the feeling that it's not actually working. I mean, I got a message here from Tina on Facebook. She says, Brexit hasn't worn us down. We're more fired up than ever. How do you assess it, Brett?
I think you're absolutely right with that, Nigel. And the reason I say that is, obviously, I come from a part of the country that's very, very, very Brexit.
Yes.
All my friends voted to leave, and nobody's changed their opinion. In fact, if anything, they've hardened it.
The evidence is that the view has hardened, and that now just get out. WTO, no deal, is where people want to go. Brett, I think if I have...
Nigel, can I make one very quick point?
Very quick, yeah.
My wife came up with a song last night that nobody's made an answer to. Last week, when they voted to take no deal off the table and to put it into law, if we have a second referendum or a confirmatory referendum, will that, by virtue of the fact it's now in law, not be on the ballot paper?
Well, the confirmatory referendum wouldn't even give us the choice of leaving properly anyway. What they're trying to do to us, Brett, is to give us a referendum, and the Chancellor supports this, and Keir Starmer supports this, that says it's Remain or Mrs May's deal. I hope it never happens. Brett, I thank you for your call. I thank all of you. I'll be in Brussels tomorrow night. I'll be back with you at 6. At 10 tonight, it's Tom Swarbrick, but up next, it's Ian Dale.
Nigel, thank you very much. Well, coming up on the show today, we have an hour-long interview at 8 with the leader of the independent group, or the acting leader of the independent group, Heidi Allen. She'll be taking your calls